So today we're going to learn how to make a drawing of an apple. And you go, oh, Miss Mary, that's so easy. I can make a drawing of an apple. And lots of times I see people make apples saying something like this, right? Is that going to be what we're going to do? No, that is not what we're going to do today. Not like that. We're going to make an apple, trying to make it look as realistic as possible, something more like this. And this can be done using mostly colored pencils. I did add a little bit of oil pastel on top, but if you don't have your oil pastels, it's not absolutely necessary, although you might like to put it on at the end. So, here's how we're going to do it. To start with, you want to use your yellow colored pencil, and you want to start by drawing pretty lightly and just kind of mapping out where you want your apple to be. I have a real apple sitting here today. And the first thing to do is to look very carefully at that apple. It's a certain shape and size. The stem does not stick out of the very top, but there's some apple that shows behind it. So you have to look at that when you're drawing your apple. Also, you have to remember that your apple is like a ball that can fit into your hand. So it's not something flat. It's something round. It's like a globe. So we're going to start out with the yellow and make your apple fit into the center of this square of paper that I gave you. And you can either look at a real apple. I'll put a picture of an apple on my video today for you to use as well. And try to look at it very carefully to see what shape is it. And just draw that shape lightly with your yellow. You don't need to press very hard, especially not yet. Then look at where is the stem. Well, on my apple, the stem sticks a little bit off the top, but comes right down in there. And there's kind of an indentation, like an indenture, like a hole here where this stem fits into. And all around it is where the apple came growing out. And so this is the next important part. When you make your strokes of your pencil, don't just go up and down flat or whichever way. Make them come around and curve around just like the apple does. So you can see that now it looks like it's down in a hole. And there's also some highlights on my apple. Right now, I'm going to just put a shape where I think the highlights are on my apple. Okay, there's a highlight there. And it's all around the top of my apple. So I'm going to just make a shape with yellow, showing where the highlights are and the shape of them, which is kind of like that. Can you see those? Those are the shapes of my highlights. Now I can start filling in with yellow some of the areas of my apple. Don't draw in the highlight part. Leave that white. So I'm going to go ahead and start building up. So what this is, it's a slow layering and building with your colored pencils. We don't just start out with red, because the apple, although you might say an apple is red, this apple is not just red, and most apples are not just red. They are many colors underneath. But the lightest of those colors is yellow, which is why we are starting with the yellow. It's the lightest one. Well, you might say the white is the lightest. We're going to leave that paper be the white. We're using white paper today. So every time I make a stroke with my yellow, I'm trying to come the direction that the yellow is. I'm not going this way, or I'm not going this way. I'm making it come in the direction of my apple. And I'm going to fill in, not everything, but the parts that look the lightest, the most yellow, I will fill in the most with yellow, like maybe in here. You see how there's an area right in here that's more yellow? Notice there's a little bit of green down there, so I'm going to have to work on that too, a green area. Okay, when you've got your yellow kind of mapped out in there, your apple, then you can move on to your orange. Actually, let's go on to light green. And let's put this little bit of light green area. So the light green is next to the stem. It's right in there. And notice I did that. So there's actually a whole section right down there that makes it look like it's going down into that hole when I surround the bottom of my stem with a little bit of green. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to my orange now. And again, you can do it lightly until you're more sure and until you want darker parts. So I'm going to come on top of my yellow now. I'm not going into the highlighted parts, but I'm coming on top of my yellow, and I'm lightly making my strokes of orange. They're going to show up a little bit more than the yellow did. You can come right on top, what you had before. And you want to be kind of, you see how long it's taking me, because I want to be careful and slow when I build my apple. And you're actually building it with your colors. Okay, I'm going to come on top. I don't want to go into the highlight area. I'm going to leave that highlight area and follow, once again, the shape of your apple. So I'm trying to reinforce its shape with every time I put a stroke down there. At this point, it's not looking too much like an apple based on the color, is it? To me, it's looking more like, I don't know, a pepper or something. But that's okay. We want to take our time and build it slowly and well. Usually the bottom of an apple is not completely flat either. This one, it's pretty flat, but you can see how it has a little bit of dip down there and a dip down there. We're going to put a shadow on our apple in a little bit, and that will also help it to look more realistic. So, curving my strokes around, coming on top. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to go to my red. And again, you can start lightly with red. Build on top what's there. I am leaving the stem space. Do that later. And you can like come on the edges now and not go all the way into the yellow and orange where it's near the white. Let it be a little bit lighter there. Don't come as dark yet. Start with your red being kind of light on top. You can always come darker afterwards. I'm going to come a little bit more red here. And coming around, making those lines follow. starting to look a little bit more like an apple now. So I fill in. Come around. Notice I'm not coloring it real hard and dark. I'm going to do that afterwards. Then I can really control it. If I draw kind of lightly at first, I can really control where the color is. But I'm laying layer upon layer here. Oops, a little bit too much in there, so I'm going to try to do that. Got to be careful when you get to the highlighted spot not to just fill it in. Okay, and it's going to be darker down on the bottom and along the edges. Okay, now I can draw harder. Now I can say, hey, which parts really look red? And now I'm pushing down harder on top with my red pencil. I can really start coming on it hard. And the parts that I want to be a deeper red. And I'm looking carefully at the actual thing to decide where it is more red, where the color should be darker. Pushing harder, but I didn't push very hard at first. That way I can build it up. And again, following the shape of the apple, thinking about its roundness. Right down here, it's really going to be the darkest. You know, we could do something on the edge here. I'll show you in a minute. Now, I didn't do the stem part yet, did I? So I'll do that next. And the shadow. I think the shine should be in a little bit there. Okay, let's do this stem. Now this stem looks pretty green. The last one I did was more brown, but this one is pretty green. So I'm going to start by just making the whole thing green. The end of the stem usually has a circle on it, the top, and a little section like that, because that's how they grow. Well, let's go a shade darker, which would be my darker green now. Don't do the whole thing in darker green, just kind of use it as sort of an outline. And I'm going to go one shade darker still and use my brown. And that will really make it pop more. In fact, I might do one more shade darker. And what I consider to be a shade darker even than this brown is purple. I don't like to use black too much, especially in some of the main parts when I'm coloring, because it can quickly overpower. It's very powerful, and it can also deaden the color. So we're going to do that, and I also think that if I just gave this little shape here a little edge, and then darkened my red a bit, that would make that pop a bit more too. Okay, and how about the outer edge? Let's try a little bit of the brown, just a very narrow, really on the very, very edge of the red, just to outline it. I'm pushing pretty hard now with that brown. Oh, look, it's smeared. You didn't know that colored pencils were so smeary, did you? Well, they are. And so, here's the next thing I'm reminded of. Take your small piece of paper and as tightly as you can, roll it up. I'm going to use this as a tortillon or a burnisher. What in the world are those things, Miss Mary? Something to rub with. And when I rub, I'm going to rub as if I'm going around the apple the other way, this way, pulling it around and into the apple itself. Look, some of the colors coming onto there. And I can actually smear it and blend it together a bit. Don't go into your green. Just go into the oranges and yellows and reds and start blending it together. I'm pressing really hard with my finger when I do this. Keep your highlights clean, but come around the little edges of them. Get something like this. Now a shadow would really make this apple pop. But I want to start light. And I want to think about the shape of my shadow. So come somewhere near the bottom, very lightly, hardly to be seen. And make it curve on out like that. And come back around, let's see, maybe up until about here. And I'm barely touching the paper. I want it to be super light, so I can barely see it. Then I'm going to take my pencil, look how I'm holding it with my finger to control it on top. This time, this would be on a table, right? So we're on a flat surface, so I just want it to be a flat shadow. So this time I am filling in with a horizontal line like that, very lightly. Next I'm going to go with my brown on top of that, very lightly again. You can leave a little bit of your blue edge. Come up here with your brown. Don't go all the way to the edge. And I'm going horizontally in that area on top of that. A little line from my table there. Not dark enough. Let's try purple on top of that. Don't go all the way to the edge. Every time you go darker, don't go to the edge. The darkest place is going to be near the apple. I'm leaving some of that edge, following the shape around, but I'm getting slightly darker each time. Now, darkest place, going to be right next to the apple, right? Starting to go a little darker. Let's take the black now, a nice strong black, and put it right on the edge. I'm just going to make a shape around the edge and then come out flat. We're going to need to rub or burnish this in a minute. Now that I've gotten that, I can go even harder still. Really give it a nice, crisp, dark edge. Now, I can turn around my paper to the other side for this part. Whoops. Okay, there goes my drawing. Put that on top. And I'm going to just rub it. Now, I could be done, and that would be a good apple drawing. But my apple looks pretty waxy. It's the way they sell them at the store. And if you have oil pastels and you want to do this final step, you can. So remember that oil pastels are a lot fatter than colored pencils. You want to come into your red with the red, but just on the edges and coming up. Don't color over everything. I'm coming really lightly actually on top of the apple that I already drew. I'm doing it really lightly. And I'm following, but I'm not coming all the way up into there. Following along. Let's do it up here too. But just a little bit. Very lightly with my oil pastel. And take your brown, lighter brown oil pastel and add a little edge using the sharp edge here, not the flap, the sharp edge of your oil pastel. If you don't want to do this and you want to keep it with just the colored pencils, that's fine, because the main lesson here is for the oil pastels. So I'm just doing a little edge, not coming in much at all. And let's put a little white on top of my white highlight. I almost liked it before I did that. Better. Be careful with that. Go back to your red edge here. Smear it some more in. And here. Now go to your other edge. Oh, we could do a little black here in our shadow. You got to be really careful with the oil pastels not to put too much on. Just a tiny bit. Oops, wind's blowing. And burnish. We've got that. So that is a completed apple. On my other one here, things are blowing. On this other one, I took some time to put some background in. You don't have to do that. But if you want to do it and put a little bit of background, keep it super, super simple. Take your color pencil, sorry. Just give yourself a table, which of course will have to be up above your shadow area. Give yourself a horizon line, and you're welcome to just do a little bit up in here. I did that on my last one because I made my apple a little bit low in the square. It felt really unbalanced. So I just put a little bit of background in to balance it out. And in this one, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to put a background because it's pretty even there. But if I wanted to, I could go ahead and put some background in there. But that's it for today. If you come up with a really great apple drawing, please send it to me, Ms. Mary at mernst It's mernst@ausdk12.org. Okay, thanks so much. And here are the steps, and then I will put a picture of an apple at the end. Bye-bye. See you next time.